Hello. Hello, friends. We are here with the Yours in Writing podcast. I am Red. I write under the names Jerry Shepherd, Reggie the Bird, Maggie McMahon, and I am bringing you the unedited raw truths about yours in writing craft, yours in writing business, and yours in writing industry in 20 minutes or less, give or take. So today we're going to be talking about trigger warnings. I recently had to add one to the audiobook that you guys have all been hopefully experiencing. We're going to talk about that audiobook in just a second. And I will always, if I am working with a traditional publisher, or, in this case, it was a traditional audio producer, and it is their standard practice to put in a trigger warning, I will 100% always do that. Why? Because I am working for them in that case. And I absolutely respect that. That said, in my independent works, you are rarely, if ever, going to find a trigger warning. And so I'm going to share why that is my stance. I did not make this a lesson today that was about the pros and cons of trigger warnings, because honestly, I thought that would be disingenuous of me to bring to you that way. Our Yours in Writing lessons this year, so through the end of the year, are sponsored by the audiobook that, oh my goodness, you guys, is only $8.99. A full length, grounded, hard, grungy geopolitical sci-fi book, yours for only $8.99 with a full cast of amazing voice actors. Get it at soundbooththeater.com or Soundbooth Theater app. And if you sign up on my email list at redwritesbooks.com through the end of the year, I will also give you the free ebook to go along with that audiobook so that you can follow along. That is the sponsor through the end of 2025. But since I'm not going to be speaking to you again until Monday, when it is the last day of the backer kit, I also wanted to let you guys know that we have only 4 days left on 2 items that I have up on backer kit right now. They are joint together. I've been honored to work on both of these. Twisted Yuletide, my story, The Bells of St. Nicholas, is in that. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous special edition book. Check that out. We're already into stretch goals. And Good Knack Means War anthology. I got to participate in that one with Eric Scott to Be, Marie Bilodeau, Ed Greenwood, Christopher D. Schmidt, Hugo Award nominated Jen Brozek as an editor. Holy cow, y'all. Really great collection of writers in the Good Knack Means War anthology. Both of these, get them on backer kit. Look them up. Good Knack, Gudnak, and Anthology of the Damned, Twisted Yuletide. Just 4 days left to get those. But let's dig into our topic today. I would love to see an end to trigger warnings. Unpopular opinion, but I'm just going to own it, y'all, because I will always be honest with you. Today's lesson is suggestive, suppressing, and spoiling. I'm not going to talk about why to use trigger warnings, but I encourage you guys all, feel free to have a gentle, we are not attacking each other conversation in the comments. I'll have to turn the comments off if y'all get mean with one another. If you really are a strong proponent of trigger warnings, that's cool. You keep using them. You do you. I'm going to do me. I'm just going to tell you why I do me this way. And I will respect you to make your own decisions. I'd love to hear your opinions on this stuff. So what does subjective mean? I don't know if trigger warnings can actually warn for every circumstance, warn for each individual, or warn at the appropriate level. Why? Because I think it's an unachievable intent for the book. First of all, I think it dates your book in terms of our changing sentiments. Some of the most progressive creatives of their times would have books that today required trigger warnings. Mark Twain, perfect example. Samuel Clemens, good thing. He was a champion for minorities in his day. His books used the word Negro, which at that time was a much kinder way of referring to African Americans than What is still today very much the other N word that I will not say on camera ever, ever. I'm sorry, you can't pay me to do that even. I have to admit that. I mean, I love acting sometimes or doing dramatic readings. And I do not even think if I was like given a role where I had to say that word, that I could bring myself to say it. But guess what? Now, words that are like it, like using the other word that Samuel Clemens slash Mark Twain used in his books, they're getting scrubbed, rolled dull, scrubbed. So no matter what, you can't put a trigger warning in today that's going to be appropriate for 20 years from now. And if you want your work to stand, whatever you're putting in a warning for, it's going to be our contemporary current sentiments. So think about that. Two, is it going to exclude somebody's personal concerns? I will tell you that I recently have been watching a show that I love. It blows me away. I'm not going to say what it is. I'm just going to tell you that it's a show that I'm very moved by. And when I watch it, everything in there could have been triggering to somebody. And if they only were to pick the one or two things that obviously are triggering, what if they're leaving somebody out? Okay, so what's to say what is triggering for a book? Let's say I am writing about if I'm writing a thriller, let's say I'm actually writing a psychological thriller. What is triggering? Is it going to be that scene where somebody actually is assaulted by maybe a serial killer? Or is it going to be a scene in a police office, a police station where the wrong suspect is being interrogated because maybe there's somebody out there who has been wrongly interrogated or has been a suspect for something that they weren't the person who perpetrated the incident? Well, I might read something in the beginning that says, hey, be warned, there's going to be this active serial killing scene, and you might be upset by that. When maybe I read through that scene and I'm like, I'm able to separate myself from the fiction. That wasn't upsetting to me, but that interrogation scene, now I'm mad at the author because they didn't warn me about the interrogation scene. So it's going to exclude, as soon as you trigger on one thing, you're going to be excluding the other things that somebody else might trigger on. And next is that severity is subjective. So let's say I'm talking in my book. I happen to write in this sci-fi world of Earth after the melt. And because we've had a melt, there are various viruses that have been released into the world. I just kind of brush them off. I'm like, oh, there's a virus. Well, guess what? There's a lot of people that might trigger today because of the pandemic that we've recently been through. And then at what level is that actually something that is triggering? Is it if one person died from it? Is it because a specific person died from it? Is it because a specific demographic died from it? Like it only affected the young or it only affected the old. Well, now I'm triggered because, hey, I lost a grandmother during the pandemic, say. That isn't me, by the way. I did not, but I'm just using that as an example. What severity level requires a trigger warning? And who am I, the author, to determine whether that severity level is correct? So I also think it's suppressive. I think it's cheapening the crap out of me, the author. It's going to take away my subtlety, my nuance, and my intent. So what do I mean by that? I think it's going to you're going to say, I have an unappreciated effort of my work. This first one, it is my job to trigger you. I genuinely believe that. Now, I don't mean that I'm trying to put you into a fetal position state, but I do mean that it is my job as an author to put something on the page that makes you feel something in your soul. You know what I want? I want an anti-trigger warning in a book. I want to say, yeah, this one's not going to really hit you that hard. What? That's what a trigger warning is saying. It's saying this one's going to really hit you. Yeah, I hope so. That's my job as a writer. I want to get you thinking. I want to get you feeling. I want to get you relating to the things that are happening in the story, either to the characters or to the world or within the plot, because that's what I'm trying to do. If I read a book and I'm not relating to the characters, feeling for the plot, connecting to the world, why am I even reading that book? It's my job. 2, it's part of the human experience. It is the human experience to go through things that change us. And usually the things that change us most, they're not pleasant. They're triggering. Our characters are going to be triggered. Our characters are going to change. There are going to be these pivotal moments in their lives that cause them to change. And that is part of the human experience. It's the part of the human experience that you're reading through for the characters, and the way that you're connecting as the reader is watching them experience it. And third, on the author side, I have other tools in my kit to tell you what the book is about, besides having to warn you away from it. Be advised. That's tough. The tools I have in my kit, I have my cover, I have my blurb, I have the synopsis on the back, I have testimonials, I have flap content if I'm doing a dust jacket. You can even read, I'll be honest, you can read the very first line of my core series and you're going to know what you're in for. So I do have other tools in my kit. So you're telling me as an author that I didn't use my tools well enough, and now I have to put additional words at the beginning beyond the words that I've created. Next, I think it's spoiling. So we talked about, I don't think it's great for the book. I don't think it's great for the author. I also don't think it's great for the reader. Are you taking joy from the reader because you're losing their immersion, the emotional impact they're experiencing, and the surprises that they can encounter? It becomes an unfulfilled enjoyment. As soon as we see a trigger warning, science has shown that we are actually triggering early. We're getting nervous. We're getting upset before we've reached anything that's upsetting. By the way, that's the only one of these bullet points across these 9 bullet points that is one from science as opposed to from my personal opinion. So I didn't want it to all just be science that I'm just throwing back things at you. This is more of just where I personally stand on it. 2, my book structure. So I think it's taking away from that in the sense that when I have a lead into a story or into a chapter, because sometimes people will do a trigger warning before a chapter, there's a certain flow to the up and down and the moods and the emotional river that I float down. And I've built that as an author. I build the tension. And what happens if I build the tension and now I do this trigger warning? It's just snapping that tension right out before I actually get to the scene where that tension gets to climax. So it's really messing with the flow of a book structure. And next, it's a spoiler alert. So let's say I have a scene that is going to be, it's going to be an illness, and it's going to have a treatment in there. And I've talked about, I put that trigger warning. Let's say I put that trigger warning at the beginning of the book. A lot of trigger warnings are at the beginning of the book. Well, now as my reader is reading through it, they're seeing the different characters and they're trying to guess in their head. They're like, oh, I bet you it's going to be so-and-so who gets cancer. Oh, I wonder if it's so-and-so. Maybe I didn't want them to know. Maybe I didn't want them to know until they landed there and they had it. And so I feel like it's not good for the book. It's not good for the author, and it's not good for the reader. Now, I want you to know, again, as I said at the beginning, and I will tell you again at the end, I will always do them. If there is a traditional publisher I'm working with, if there is somebody that I am working with, if there's a producer I'm working with, that this is their standard. Sorry, our little cuckoo clock. As I told you guys, we're always coming raw and unedited to you. If there is a standard that I'm working with somebody and that is their standard to use trigger warnings, I will absolutely respect that. That is their choice as the publisher, as the producer, as the label, whoever it is that I am working with. If I'm working with somebody else, or if I'm doing a writing for hire and they have a standard that they are going to be using trigger warnings, I'm always going to respect that. I also will respect you as a fellow author, but I don't want these to become the standard. I have shared my reasons why I don't believe in them. I continue to not believe in them, strongly not believe in them as a creative for all of these reasons I've shared. And I know if some of you will strongly disagree with me. And here's the thing, that's okay, especially in our world where there's a lot of indies. You can make your own choices. And there are times that you're going to decide to play by the rules, and there are going to be times that you're going to make your own rules. I do the same thing. Trigger warnings is one of those areas. So I'm curious to see where you guys stand on this. Again, I encourage you to have a critical and joyful conversation in the comments wherever you find this lesson. But if it gets ugly, unfortunately, I will have to turn off the comments, and I really don't feel like taking this down. So just be kind to each other. And above all, as I always say, be gloriously human. Remember, Yours in Writing is sponsored through the end of the year by the At Fault audiobook that you can get right now with a trigger warning on soundbooththeater.com, at Soundbooth Theater app, and when you also sign up for my website's newsletter at www.redwritesbooks.com. That's red the color, even though I'm a little gray these days. Writesbooks.com. I will give you an ebook to go along with that audiobook. You will be able to have both. Thanks for joining me today for the Yours in Writing podcast. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. And